I'm Trina with Run Radio for 1 Million Cups. It's 1 Million Cups Day. Every Wednesday, 8:30 to 9:30. Our guest today, Chad, with the GoodCompanyShips.com, but you've also been part of 1 Million Cups since the early days. So tell me a little bit about that and what that's been like.
I was very fortunate to be a part of the 1 Million Cups group at the very beginning. For me, it was like a business education in a pressure cooker. Now we worked. I'm very grateful to the organization. I did work for free, so I'm not too grateful. But we, as a free resource within our community, and having a front row seat to being able to hear the nuts and bolts of all these different entrepreneurs' businesses. They were candid, they were accessible. I think it taught me more than any formal education I could have ever sought.
So just to give people an idea of what it's like, being on the either side of the microphone, if you're in the audience or if you're presenting, what can they kind of expect?
I have always found this organization to be incredibly welcoming. The audience is really accessible. The 1 Million Cups is always capped by the question, how can we as a community help you? And I think that sets the stage for what it is that we're here to do. This isn't a Shark Tank pitch where you're trying to sell the audience. What you're doing is trying to show the nuts and bolts of your businesses to other like-minded peers who might be able to help you crowdsource a solution. And what I observed over now a decade of 1 Million Cups presentations is that people who sit in the audience are truly there for the presenter. And people who are presenting, if they're candid and vulnerable about the things that they really need help with, they almost always get it.
So talk about a little bit about how you took that knowledge and turned that into what you're doing now.
I don't know if I could draw a string back from one individual thing. I think what was important was the sheer exposure that I got by sitting and listening to so many different entrepreneurs elaborate on their approach. None of them are perfect, and I think that they would sit up there and tell you exactly the same thing. But I think in the same way that Warren Buffett spends the vast majority of his time just reading and consuming material, sitting in the audience and listening to more and more entrepreneurs talk about their business, I think over time that accumulates into a bit of wisdom that you've absorbed to just help you make on the day-to-day decisions better decisions.
Tell us a little bit about GoodCompanyShips.com.
So the Good Company is a third-party logistics company primarily for e-commerce businesses. If you owned an e-commerce business and you sourced your product to ultimately ship to your consumers, you have the choice whether to ship it yourself, maybe out of your garage at the beginning, or you can open up a warehouse, or you can hire a third-party logistics company or a 3PL like us. You pay us a storage fee, a pick, pack, and ship fee to where you just have materials, postage, and then the cost of storing your material, where those costs are incurred at the time of the sale rather than managing it yourself. You can hire someone like us who's a little bit more boutique. We cater to, I would say, the companies who are looking for a more bespoke solution with a lot more intimacy into their service providers. Or you can see examples across companies like Amazon with their multi-channel fulfillment and dozens of warehouses across the country.
What I think was really interesting about your presentation today was you kind of accidentally fell into that. It wasn't like you knew right away there was a niche for that, but you discovered it. Can you talk about that real quick?
I began in the last decade. I spent as the COO of Everything Kitchens, and a big portion of the COO's role is managing our own outbound fulfillment, where we had a large warehouse. What we needed to do was to send more volume through the same facility that we already had in order to subsidize a lot of our own costs. So, like you said, we were already doing it for ourselves. It seemed like a short leap to be able to provide these services for others. So once we began to do that, we recognized our competency a lot of days it felt more like we were a logistics company disguised as a retailer anyways. So becoming a logistics company was an easy transition for us. Because we did such a good job, the business came on its own.
Excellent. Thanks so much for sharing today, presenting, being part of 1 Million Cups. If you want to get in touch with Chad at goodcompanyships.com.
That's correct.
And you can always learn more at 1 Million Cups Springfield and runradio.net.